Hey guys, Guy here. Got a couple emails to guy@heyguy.co where you can go to send me a mailbag question or any question at all. And starting now, for the people who already signed up as of about 15 or 20 minutes ago, hat sales of the 262 hats and the Hey Guy hats at heyguy.co. They're up and running. Go get them. So a question that I got recently, and I know because I've been talking to a couple of people, it's come up is about Deebo Samuel. And Ed emailed the mailbag and said, how much money do you think Deebo is worth to a team going into the 2025 season? Is he getting a raise or taking a pay cut next year? And, I think it's a good question because there's been this popular belief that Deebo was playing his last year on the 49ers before the season began. And I pushed back on that before the season began because I said, we don't know how he's going to play. What if he plays well? $15 million for a guy who maybe he's one of the two or three best players on your offense is supposed to be. Isn't that expensive? That's what he's on the books for the 49ers for next year. But he hasn't played well. They haven't played well. And it's put him in a really tough spot because his contract only gets beneficial to trade or cut, and it's the same after June 1st. Now, this is not new. We've talked about this part of it before. But right now, Deebo Samuel's 2025 cap hit, if he plays for the 49ers under the current contract, is $15 million. If they cut him or trade him before June 1st, his dead cap hit is $30 million. So it's not a savings to do that. You've got to do it after June 1st. If they do it after June 1st, then instead of a $15 million cap hit this year, his dead cap is $10 million. So they would save $5 million on the cap this year, but it would be a dead cap hit of $20 million in 2026. And this is the same whether they trade him or release him. And I think we've got to, we don't have to totally eliminate the trade thing, but given his production this year, I think we have to mostly eliminate the possibility that he's traded after June 1st. Why? Why would somebody trade for Deebo for this contract that's not crazy, but it is not valuable based on his production this year and the trend line? It's one thing to say, well, you look back at his second year in the league, he had one touchdown and he caught less balls. And he played 7 games. Every year he deals with injuries. So that's a consideration. He caused a slight, not a ruckus, a small kerfuffle, a little distraction, slight, but then didn't back it up when he posted before the Thursday night game that, he needs to get the ball more, whatever, and then deleted it, and then blah, blah, blah. And if he'd had 8 catches or if he just caught the balls that hit him in the hands, it would have been a different story. We would have said he backed it up. But if you are acquiring him, those are all the things you got to explain to your owner. When your owner goes, wait, he's expensive, we're going to trade whatever. And that's the other thing. You're not getting anything close to what you think, even at this point, his value is. We saw that even before the draft, that they didn't get any real sniffs when the league knew, hey, Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, give him a call. Just check in. What are you willing to offer? And, rightly, the answer was, you're not taking a 4th rounder. You should have done it then. And now that may be the best option you have. So is saving $5 million, is saving $5 million. Part of saving the $5 million is having somebody else. So while everybody, including myself, is down on Deebo's production, and they have to be, and he's got to be, and, they threw him the ball 71 times this year so far. Not to mention he's had 34 carries. That's 100 touches that go to somebody else, which I know immediately makes everybody go, yeah. Give 100 touches to somebody else. But the other part 2 of this job is having 100 touches to give to somebody else. Who is your somebody else? Over the next 3 games, are we going to suddenly see a Ricky Pearsall that changes everything for the offseason? No. It'd be great. It's one of my top things to watch, like everybody else. Can you get, a Ricky Pearsall breakout game here at the end of the season, give him a little confidence going into the next season, give him a full off season, work with Purdy, all that kind of stuff. But the option that hasn't been mentioned yet here is extension, which makes everybody recoil. The only reason to do it would be to make him cheaper in 2025 and 2026. But it would feel weird because you don't feel like he deserves it. So, you'd worry about kind of sending the wrong message to your own team, to your locker room, certainly to the fans. The fans would not receive that message well. I do think one thing that Niners have been pretty elite at is managing money and finding ways not to get too trapped by money. But this is a very, very, very unique circumstance with a player who's not that expensive if he's performing, but is trending in the wrong direction. This year did not perform, did not really play or act like a leader, a captain, and it's just you kind of throw your hands up. But I say all that to say extension is part of their conversation just because they may not be able, if you can save more than $5 million this year and create more than $5 million in cap space this year by extending him, they may do it. They may do that, especially if it means he doesn't cost $20 million against your cap and dead cap money next year in 2026. So 2 years. And that goes back to kind of the feeling that I have that I know other people share, which is they don't have time. You can't do the rebuild thing. You've got to find ways to adjust on the fly. You got a young quarterback. You're hosting the Super Bowl next year. The schedule, whether you're the third place team or fourth place team in the NFC West this year, is going to be a schedule that you want to take advantage of in 2025. So, I don't think we can underrate that and the fact that they host the Super Bowl at Levi Stadium. Just when you think about the mindset that an owner would have, if you were the owner, you're hosting the Super Bowl. You don't want your team to stink because you're rebuilding that year. So I think you've got to keep that in mind when you think about, well, let's say they could create $12 million in cap space by extending Deebo instead of $5 million. What do? Is your team better or worse if you cut him? Does the coach think he can still squeeze some production out of him and you create more cap space to add players around? Maybe that's an option. The other part of this mailbag from Ed was, I think Purdy might surprise people, take a team-friendly deal. I think he might too, but not out of the goodness of his heart. So thank you for that question, Ed. This is from Brian, who says, really enjoy your takes, but I don't always agree with them. But this whole Fire Shanahan deal is mind-boggling. I can't seem to comprehend fans' train of thought. I lived through the runs of the late 80s and the 90s. I thought we would be great forever, and then the early 2000s happened. I'm loving this whole regime because we're relevant again. We have one of the best minds in football and GMs running the show. Yorker's grown up and has allowed the right people to do their job. The season's tough. We haven't dealt with much attrition in the last few years. Now that we have, people are losing their minds. I think we have to find a way to slip into the playoffs and possibly make some noise. This email was back when there was hope for the season. If not then, I know the front office will make some adjustments. I'm having fun with the success, but you have to take the good with the bad. Crazy thing is we're a handful of plays from 8-2, 7-3. Margin of error is razor thin. I appreciate the content you put out. Thanks for taking the time to read this, Brian. Thank you for taking the time to email the show. I get DMs from people all the time. Those are hard to keep track of. So if you want to make it easy on me, which really should be your biggest goal, then you can just email guy@heyguy.co. I agree. I mean, obviously, Brian is preaching to the choir here on Shanahan. Still a top flight coach in the league, flawed, who isn't 0-40 something when trailing by 8. I think Brock has so much going for him and so much to build on. One of the things the perfect quarterback for Kyle Shanahan would have the ability to bail Kyle out. But the reality is there's only a couple of guys, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Burrow. It's a very short list. But Shanahan has an offense that is really good from ahead because it relies so much on the run game and punishing teams. And, it's very old school. If you go talk to, a guy who's, and this does not mean past his prime, but who really thinks about the physicality of football, which, some offensive coordinators are more interested in dialing up sweet shit. Kyle likes dialing up sweet shit, but his whole thing is predicated on what Mike Shanahan's offense is predicated on, the physicality of the game. So we're going to do things in the first half that may not work as well, but by doing them, they will work more in the second half because we're going to wear you down. We're going to punch you and punch you and punch you and punch you. And, I talk to offensive coordinators every week doing college football games. Some guys talk like that. Some guys don't. Some guys play like that. Some guys don't. Kyle does. It's a strength. It becomes a weakness when you're down 10 points in the fourth quarter and you're not as built for that. In the Garoppolo era, some of you have been listening since then or watching since then. No, I used to compare it to the Princeton offense in basketball, which is not about threes and layups. Historically, it's about back cuts. It's about precision, bounce passes, chest passes, running plays, We're going to run the play, and then we're going to run the play. It's not about one-on-one isolation offense. And sometimes in football, the offensive coordinator needs a one-on-one ISO player. In basketball, just give the ball to Kobe. The team isn't as good. Maybe the supporting cast isn't as good. Maybe the game plan isn't as good. But give it to Kobe and let him go one-on-one and create and make a play. And, that's what Mahomes is and those other guys. So, I think Kyle would benefit the most from that because that would be the type of player that, has a strength where he has a weakness. Brock Purdy's strength is really strong and it's unique and it matches really well with Kyle and his strengths. And I think it takes what Kyle does well to another level beyond what a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo could do with it. But it still doesn't totally make up because he's got some opportunities for a variety of reasons. Those are not his greatest strengths are some of the things that are some of the hardest things for other players to do, to be on time, to be accurate, to be tough. Like these are elite traits in some categories that he has, but not in all categories. The bailout, come from behind. And, a lot of times it's, this offends some people, I guess, but like that is a big arm and being able to hit home runs and big threes and all that kind of stuff that didn't have to be schemed open. That's part of that. But that's not a skill set. The Niners have been on the precipice of Super Bowl championships before, and they've been beaten by the guy that has that skill set. So, and that guy's made big plays. So, I'm still, I would say, fairly optimistic on where Brock Purdy can go. And definitely, and I said this in the last show, I thought Kawakami made a great point about Brock's floor. If this is Brock's floor this year, that's a pretty acceptable floor if you're going to have a team that tries and competes. But the solution is not fire Shanahan. But I do think what's interesting, I mentioned offensive coordinators in college, especially, they love this guy named Dan Casey, Coach Dan Casey on the internet. And I know he sends out daily emails, and he often posts great plays and creative plays and all kinds of cool stuff. I don't know if you guys saw the fake punt in the UNLV Cal game on Wednesday night. That's football in the LA Bowl, the Gronk LA Bowl. It got a lot of run because on the internet, because it's one of the great fake punts. But anyway, Dan Casey and a lot of coaches that I know love when Dan Casey posts, the video of one of their creative play calls. But I saw something on Thursday morning. He posted, you want your offensive coordinator to be in a good mood, especially when things are going poorly. You want your defensive coordinator to be in a bad mood, especially when things are going well. Some of the best teams have balance between relentlessly positive OC and incurably salty DC. Now, this is a fun observation and a great observation. And there are exceptions to the rule, and the Niners happen to be an exception to this rule because their OC is incurably salty. And it makes you wonder, like Nick Sorensen, force of nature personality, the vibes that Kyle brings versus the vibes that D'Amico and Robert Saleh brought. Was there a unseen, kind of undetectable, unmeasurable, immeasurable benefit of having, those guys as your defensive coordinators, because they weren't Vic Fangio from a personality standpoint? There maybe was a little more positivity that came from those guys, and that it was a good balance for Kyle and his other style. I think there might be something. I think there might be something to that. So it is a Thursday if you're watching this live, and that means it's time to check in on Prize Picks. So right now you can load up with the promo code GUY. You make a $5 lineup, you immediately get $50 into your account. Whether you win or lose that $5 lineup, $50, bam, goes right into your account. And it's very easy. I'm going to make some lineups right now. Thursday night football. I'm going to go with Derek. Oops, it's on NBA, which is also fun. But I'm going to go with football because that's what we do here. I did make a big college lineup as well. I'm going to go Derrick Henry. Let's see here. Les. Can I go Les? Ooh. No, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go less than 82.5 rushing yards against the Steelers. Outside of his big Week 12 performance against the Chargers, which was 140 games, he has slowed down in the last 5. The Eagles last week with a similar offensive setup ran for 131. Saquon for 65. 84.5 in the last 5 games. That's the average against the Steelers defense. So I'm going less on Derrick Henry. I'm going to go with, next up, Stone Smart. Stone Smart, more than 36.5 receiving yards on this is the Thursday night game. More than 33.5 receiving yards for the Chargers against the Broncos. And I used him in another lineup. I'm going to go Ladd McConkey. More than 66.5 receiving yards. Ladd McConkey's been Justin Herbert's top target. He's been over this yardage mark 3 out of the last 5 games. Stone Smart has been the Will Dissly replacement. In his last 2 games, Stone Smart has 5 for 50 against Tampa, 3 for 54 against Kansas City. Yeah, he's a Northern California kid. Del Oro High School, the Sacramento area. So I'm going to go, let's go 20 to win 100 there, but we need to hit all 3. And bam, lineup made. It's that easy. Let's make another lineup. And let's just do a little Brock here. What do we got from Brock? Against Miami. I'm going to go more than 237.5. I just think I have thought a few times there is some value in Purdy yardages. Now, Bradley Chubb is back since he got hurt at the end of last year, but I'm going to go more than 235.5 for Brock. I hate it, but I love it. I'm going to go more than half a rushing or receiving touchdown for Jahmyr Gibbs of the Lions. The Bears are 26th in defense against rushing touchdowns allowed. David Montgomery's out with an MCL injury. That's a lot of red zone touches for Jahmyr Gibbs. And then I'm going to go, let's see, can I go Jennings in this lineup? Can I go Juwan? Receiving yards, more than 55.5. I sure can. So there you go. Prize Picks, use the code GUY. And when you do, you'll get $50 into your account immediately. I've also have a big college football. I told you guys about this the other day, big college football one that I got locked in. So code GUY, that'll be for Saturday, the big college football bowl games. Well, and Friday. Notre Dame, Indiana is on Friday night. Code GUY there and check it out. You can also go to heyguy.co. I don't know. Are these hats still available? Are they still available? It's a cool little rubber patch on the Hey Guy hat and the 262 hats in red, black, and white. That is candlestick red and primetime black and Sunday white. All right, y'all. Appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a great week. And